Hiya, this is Maya from Ninja Pulse. Do you hope for the best?
Casca! She has found you!
Or do you fear the worst?
I should have just rolled over and gone back to sleep this morning.
Both have valid viewpoints. Optimism gives you something to look forward to, which is pretty essential in all areas of life. While pessimism makes you better prepared to deal with bad outcomes when they happen. I'm going to try a bit of a gimmick with this video, with the help of Khan.
Hello.
We're going to go over the letter posted on Monday by Matt Firel, studio director at ZOS, and the man responsible for ESO more than anyone else. It's just a short message he posts every year, and it's pretty vague. So it's probably a bad idea to over-interpret everything he says in there, but hey, that's what nerds do when they care about something. So here we are. I'm going to take an optimistic, hopeful reading of this letter. Things are looking up. ZOS have taken our feedback on board and will finally focus on fixing this game. A new dawn for ESO is coming, and 2023 is going to be amazing. Meanwhile,
I'm going to take a pessimistic and grumpy interpretation. This is all misdirection and empty promises. The game won't be fixed. They're just going to make less content while charging us the same amount of money. We're all fucked.
Yeah, obviously, we'll both exaggerate. The best way to look at this is somewhere in between, with a healthy mix of both. So, let's get going. As we approach the end of 2022, it's once again time to share some thoughts on where ESO is and to look ahead at what is in store for the game in the new year. In 2023, ESO will see an amazing chapter, as well as some long requested changes to the types of content that we will deliver, based largely on community feedback. But before we get into all the details, 2022 is ending as we wind down the legacy of the Breton storyline. We were very happy to welcome the millions of new ESO players who joined over the course of 2022, which featured 2 new localizations, Spanish and Simplified Chinese. We returned to live, in-person events with another amazing and fun ESO Tavern in Germany this August. It was a great year, and even better in that we got to start traveling again and seeing you all in person. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the issues with Update 36, which launched just this last November. It introduced far too many bugs and issues, and even as I write this, we are still chasing down issues with blocking in combat. Trust me, I am just as concerned about this as you all are, and we will be making some process changes within the dev team to ensure that things like this happen far more rarely. With an aging codebase, which is 26 million lines of code, really, it is difficult to be 100% efficient, but we can be far, far better, and we know it. Khan, thoughts?
I mean, this is just guff. I guess it's what you'd expect. He's trying to get us hyped for the next year while making excuses for the failures of 2022.
Oh, come on, it's more than that. They're signalling that they've gathered feedback and are acting on it. They've acknowledged some mistakes and promising to do better. And they're also recapping some cool stuff that happened this year.
I guess it's easy to say that you're acting on feedback, but I'd like to see some data. Show me the numbers. As for acknowledging mistakes, they're not even mentioning Update 35 here. That's the elephant in the room for me. Sure, Update 36 was bad, but it was the whole patch cycle leading up to Update 35 that made so many people leave, and it shredded the trust of those of us who are still here. They need to earn that back, and by failing to even mention that here, it suggests to me they haven't even realised that yet.
They got their pants pulled down, basically. So I can't really blame them for not wanting to talk about it. The admission of failure is still there. But yeah, taking off the optimistic hat for a moment, I totally agree with you. With Update 35, they demonstrated they don't understand their own combat system. They promised to improve accessibility and shrink the power gap, when actually it turned out they were doing exactly the opposite. So it feels like a mistake to pretend that Update 35 just didn't happen. We were there. We all remember it.
Yeah, it was the low point of the year, for sure. But just before we move on, what do you make of this phrase, "we will be making some process changes within the dev team"? What does that mean?
I mean, it sounds to me like they are firing people, maybe, but it is a bit vague. I don't want to celebrate anyone losing their job and their livelihood, but if that is what's happened, well, maybe the team will actually buck up and do their job in 2023. Anyway, moving on. ESO looking forward. In general, there are two types of content in ESO. Handcrafted, such as quests, stories, and things you do one time per character, and systems, which are activities that are generally repeatable, such as PvP, dungeons, trials, housing, daily crafting writs, etc. We have always had a mix of the two types of content, but in terms of dev team hours, the majority of time developing the game has been weighted towards questing content. As I mentioned above, the big news for 2023 is that based in significant part on player feedback, we are now at the point where we are reassessing the balance of handcrafted, one and done, storytelling content versus repeatable game activities. ESO is a massive game with a huge number of zones, quests and systems. We have created 40 or so hours of hand-built content every year since 2015, as well as myriad of dungeons and new systems like One Tamriel, thieving, assassinations, companions, tales of tribute, antiquities, crafting writs, housing, graphical character customization, solo and group arenas, PvP battlegrounds, and much more. Now that we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of questing content, enough for 4 or 5 regular RPGs, we are hearing from our new players that the sheer number of zones and stories and characters is intimidating. And on the other hand, our veteran players consistently tell us that they would like more content that isn't played through just once. They would like more content they can enjoy for years, content that utilizes our already existing zones to add new things to do, and most importantly, introduces some new gameplay. I'll go first with my optimistic take. This sounds amazing. There are some tantalizing ideas here, which I really like the sound of. They're right to remind us all the wonderful content they already have in the game. And it's easy to imagine Zos doing some really cool things to revitalize old zones, maybe even old dungeons. I think everyone would love that. I also love the line, content that utilizes our already existing zones to add new things to do. Imagine having the freedom to tell a new and interesting story without having to invent a new zone with all the architecture, geography, history and lore, populate the map, all of that. That sounds like a really smart way to reduce the workload, whilst bringing some of the base game zones back to life, the zones that you only visit when you're doing your surveys.
You're right, that would be cool, but I think you're also daydreaming. They're not promising anything that specific. Matt isn't really giving us anything to go on here, so it's kind of hard for me to find stuff to be pessimistic about, but here goes. It's all a bit vague for a start. Also, he talks about player feedback without showing us even a glimpse. I'm not saying it's not true. The idea that newcomers are intimidated by the sheer number of stories is totally believable. And the idea that veteran players want more sandbox stuff, especially tougher things that they can progress, yeah, I definitely buy that. But this would be a lot more persuasive if they showed us any numbers at all, or just referred to a specific survey or a source of data. Are they just looking at Reddit, Twitter, Discord servers, the forums, or are these those specific surveys that they've sent out to a bunch of people every couple of years? The other thing I don't really like about this section is that it very conveniently sets up the next bit. Yeah, I guess why don't you read that and I'll give you a really cynical take on this whole deal.
Alright, moving forward to 2023. Given the above, 2023 will see us moving away from the year-long adventure 12-month storylines that we have featured since 2019's Season of the Dragon. I think these have run their course and frees us up to do some new and interesting content that we've been wanting to do for a few years now. And lets us return to expansive story arcs that unfold over multiple chapters. This year-long strategy was a huge success and raised the profile of ESO, but now, after 4 straight years, we're finding more and more that this cadence limits what we can do. So below is the 2023 content cadence. Please know that the first half of the year remains essentially unchanged, but the second half of the year now has an update devoted to addressing issues and quality of life improvements, and an update devoted to a large new tentpole system. Q1, Dungeon DLC. Q2, full-featured chapter in June. The 2023 ESO chapter will be a complete story. You will be able to play all the way through it without a storyline that is broken out and reserved for later in the year. We will return to larger, better, and more detailed chapters by doing this. We are really excited about next year's chapter. For details, you'll have to wait for our global reveal event in January. But one hint, this will be part of a multi-year story arc, and it will contain one of the most requested new features. Q3, focus on quality of life improvements and bug fixes. Q4, rather than the usual Zone DLC, will be featuring a new system. We are working on the concept and design for this now. We'll give more detail during our global reveal event early next year. Looking back at ESO's evolution since 2014, you can see that we often shake things up, try new things, and make changes as needed. So we will assess how this new cadence is received, both by the dev team and in the community. If we have to make more adjustments, we will.
Okay, so this is the bit where the pessimist totally freaks out. It's not necessarily what I think, but, you know, I'm with that hat on. What I'm seeing here is that instead of 4 dungeons and 2 zones a year, we're going to get 2 dungeons and just 1 zone in the same time frame. So we get half as much game in 2023 and every year after that. But are they reducing the cost of ESO Plus? Is there any reduction in the amount of money that we have to pump into the game for this privilege? When you look at it like that, this is a real what the fuck moment. Worst of all, this letter is written in a way to make it sound like it's a benefit to the players. We're basically getting less for the same amount of money, but it's being pitched to us like it's a win. It's incredibly cheeky.
Oh, come on, Khan, that's crazy! This is great news!
How?
Give me a minute, I'll try and come up with something. Jokes aside, you do have a point, of course. It's not easy to be optimistic when we're being told that we'll be getting a lot less for our money next year. But I'll give it a try. The year-long story is a cool format, but breaking out of it might help them tell better stories and stay on top of, well, everything, especially game stability and bugs. Every year there's at least 1 dungeon which is a bit meh. And if they've got fewer things to work on, the 2 dungeons and the trial we do get each year should be absolutely spectacular. Also, whatever they need to do to fix the game's performance and the huge number of bugs piling up, I'll take it. Yeah, I'd rather they did this while still giving us the standard amount of content, but fixing it is the most important thing. Honestly, if I could sacrifice an entire year's worth of content to make them fix the game faster, I'll do it in a heartbeat. There's no one out there saying, no, I'd rather play a broken game as long as I can get my little stories. No. If this is us finally stepping up to do what needs to be done, that's definitely a good thing. And I'm excited to see it happen.
Yeah, but remember they say that every year. If you go back through Matt's letters every December, you'll see promises to fix the game, to do better, to prioritize performance, and get smoother patch releases. It just never happens. I don't think the guy intends to lie to us, but that's effectively what happens every year. I don't see any reason to trust that this time will be any different, at least not in this letter. I guess I hope you're right, and they genuinely intend to reallocate resources away from content and into game stability in general, but I don't really see how that works. Those are not the same personnel that deal with both of those things. So this could just as easily be ZOS reallocating resources to their next game, or something like that. Yeah, it just looks like they're trying to get away with doing less work, or having a lower output for the same amount of money. At least so long as the players don't realise that that's what they're doing, until they realise they're being stiffed. I guess that's the glimmer of hope. If that really pessimistic view is correct, then, well, the players will realise it. ESO players are not children. If we're sitting here next year, reading the same apologies for failure and the same promises that next year will be different, things will get better, people are going to be mad as hell, and they won't want to touch ZOS or their next project with a barge pole ever again, no matter what it is the next game they're working on. That stink will just be on them, and they'll have lost the goodwill of the people who should be their biggest cheerleaders. That's why I don't quite believe the super pessimistic version that I'm putting out there. But it is a concern, right?
Yeah, same. I do see some reasons for optimism in this altered release schedule. You know, moving away from year-long adventures, ditching a dungeon DLC, and focusing on PvP maybe or something. Those are things I've talked about for ages, but yeah, I'm also pretty skeptical about ZOS making these kind of promises. If you look through the letters, in 2020 we get an apology, oh whoopsies, we didn't have enough people, we didn't do as much work as we should have, pandemic, we'll do better. 2021, hey, Launches were absolutely abysmal. They were unacceptable back in 2020. We did better this year, and we're in a better place to, start 2022. What happened? The launches are even worse than in 2020.
They just regressed 2 years or whatever.
So,
Also, I think it is true. You've been saying, lots of us have been saying, for a couple of years now, that the year-long adventure format is a bit of a straitjacket and not necessarily the best way to maintain the game or make the best content. And we're just the dummies who play the game. So if we could see it, why do you think it's taken them so long to make this change?
I mean, Matt literally in this letter kind of says, well, we've been wanting to do something else for a long time, so yeah, it's very odd. But my guess, it's great PR. Having a single branded product you can push all year long, where each release kind of teases the next one.
Yeah.
Like, that is great idea from a marketing standpoint. Maybe that's why they stuck with it for so long. Also, it looks to me like they made this decision fairly recently, so maybe in direct response to the mess we had in the second half of 2022. The fact that the first 2 updates are basically unaffected means they probably already done too much work to just chuck it.
Right.
Whereas third and fourth quarter, maybe they were still in fairly early stages, so it was okay to either postpone or just fuck it, let's not do it. I don't know, of course, I'm no expert, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it went. And that is a good sign. As Matt says, they're trying to be responsive and give the game what it needs, not just what's expected or what's easy to pitch. Because how are they going to pitch to new players? Hey, you're going to have 3 months of us working on fixing bugs that you didn't even know were in the game.
Yeah, bugs you're not aware of, yeah.
So, kind of kudos for that if they actually do that. But I want to talk about this thing he also says about one of the most requested new features. But I guess we'll circle back to that one. So let's look at the next section. Hardware and server updates. We are in the home stretch of upgrading and replacing all ESO data center hardware, which of course has been significantly delayed by the ongoing global slowdown of sourcing computer hardware. Once complete, ESO servers and infrastructure will be much more reliable, and as we saw from the one realm that has been upgraded so far, PCNA, there will be some performance improvements as well.
I love that you're giving Matt Firor kind of a movie trailer aspect to his voice.
I know, that's how I imagine him, sitting at his desk. I see a paper and a pen and just crafting away.
Yeah.
Anyway, almost all of the hardware should be delivered and in place by December, and then we'll need a month or 2 to install and test everything before we shift over to the new hardware. Please note that we will be prioritizing all 3 realms in the EU data center first, and then we will return to the NA data center to finish moving Xbox and PlayStation realms there. We are as frustrated as you that this has taken so long, but it is happening and will be done and ready for all players probably in late February or March of 2023. Our multi-threading work continues as we announced a month or so back. Just to remind everyone, this is the initiative that will result in better overall server performance. As we already announced, we will be phasing these changes in over the course of 2023, starting with the chapter in Q2. We'll keep everyone updated in patch notes going forward.
I feel like my job here kind of takes care of itself. We'll believe it when we see it, Matt. And the obvious negative thing to say here is that it's just taken way too long. Yes, the global shortage of computing components and hardware was a real thing. Maybe not so much anymore, I don't know. But ZOS have repeatedly failed to meet their own deadlines that they set. These are not unrealistic expectations set by the players, but by their own promises. And there have been way too many long and awkward silences in between updates as well. I remember reading a message from Matt Firor at the beginning of this year saying that there would be regular updates on this. And they just haven't. We didn't hear anything until a matter of weeks ago. So yeah, it's happening. I just hope that it doesn't get delayed again and that these performance improvements are actually real, because there is a huge number of players that have been waiting for this a long time and have just extended trust over and over again, hoping that, they're not being strung along.
Yeah, the good news is that it is finally happening. I can imagine that it's a huge project and it will be a massive relief to everyone when it's done. I am trying to be as optimistic as possible here, but yeah, better communication would have prevented a lot of frustration among the players this year. Finally, there's a section about fan gatherings in 2023. I'll let you guys read that on your own. There will be one in the US sometime this spring, and another ESO Tavern event in Germany, which was apparently awesome this year. Nothing in the UK, of course. Again, I just want to stress that both of us exaggerated our viewpoints quite a bit here. Khan isn't actually that grumpy. We both have a healthy dose of skepticism and optimism about this, as I think most ESO players have who read this. But we talked a lot about this on my Twitch stream yesterday, and by advocating for opposite sides, I think we got a few more viewpoints into the discussion. I'm also working on a 2022 review video for ESO, going back over all the good and the bad things that happened in the game, and I'm trying to put them into context. Keep an eye out for that. Should be a fun one. But before we finish, let's go back to that tantalizing little mention in Matt's letter of one of the most requested new features that will be coming to the game in 2023. This is a really infuriating thing for him to tease, right? And very clever, because it gets us talking and very excited, which is, well, that's basically the whole point of the letter. But hey, Khan, so I've got a list here of some of the things that it might be. Those are just theories that various people have come up with in the guild. It will probably be none of these, but I thought it would be fun if I put you on the spot. Get you to give each one a score from 0 to 5 based on how likely you think they are. And any comments, bring it.
Okay. So what is 5 is like almost definitely, 0 is no chance, or?
Yeah.
Okay. How long's the list?
Miles and miles.
Go.
A trial group finder.
Like a dungeon finder, but for trials.
Yep.
Ooh. That is a thing that people talk about a lot. I personally don't know if it would work. I think a lot of these people who ride for this would be unpleasantly surprised by the outcome. I guess 3 out of 5.
Cool, yeah. New class or new skill line?
Oh, everyone wants a new class. But 0. 0 for a new class, definitely not. I'd love it. I'd love to be wrong about that one. As for a new skill line, I would say, I don't know why I'm going to give it a 4, because it's been a long time since we got one.
Interesting. Combat tutorial.
A tutorial would actually be really useful. That is a thing that people talk about every single fucking patch. I'd like to think it wouldn't be useful for me. I really should know how to play by now. But there is a lot of confusion, myths, and just shit advice out there. But yeah, I don't think this one is likely. 2?
Romancing companions.
5. No question. That's happening.
Additional housing slots?
That would be cool. I don't think I would really benefit from it, except to store more crap in my houses. But yeah, I know loads of people who would love this. But as far as I know, it would have to be limited to PC and next-gen console. That seems like it would be a little unfair, and I don't think they would do that. So I'm going to go with 3.
Veteran difficulty in Overland content.
That would be fucking amazing. Oh yeah, that would be cool, actually. That I've bitched about this a bunch of times, that the climax of an ESO questline is often totally ruined by, you know, you meet the big scary villain and it dies to 1 or 2 hits. Even if you've got a moderately decent build, you just take it down. A difficulty slider would fix that without making it impossible for new players. That's obviously the reason why this is so easy, and I get that. I wouldn't want that to change. But yeah, I think that would be complicated to implement. Maybe a 2?
Spellcrafting or custom abilities.
Is there no one else mentioned that, right, in his video?
Yeah.
That is a very cool idea, and yeah, it's something we have seen in other Elder Scrolls games. But I don't know, it just doesn't... I don't know why I haven't really given it much thought, but it doesn't seem like a likely choice. 1?
New reward system for repeatable content.
You mean trials, dungeons, and stuff like that?
All the trials and dungeons. You know, you've done
Arenas.
them once. You got the trifecta on your tank. You go back in on your healer. Keep getting them over and over. You know, give us something, whether it's endeavors or something completely new.
Yeah, Seals of Endeavor for completing a trifecta, or yeah, Skinny Cheeks did a really cool video about this a while ago. I think it was when they did global account-wide achievements.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the ideas, he was just, spitballing, but some of the ideas that he and others had suggested were really good. I think this would be easy for them to implement. I just don't get the vibe that ZOS care that much about the players who prog veteran trials and that kind of thing. So maybe a 3 maximum?
How about a third difficulty in dungeons and trials, where it's an intermediate mode, newer, harder content, where the step from normal to veteran is massive, or a super veteran difficulty for base game content where even hard modes are just way too easy now?
That would transform ESO for me and a lot of people. I like the, what do you say, intermediate mode?
Yeah, intermediate and then like super veteran.
Yeah, because there must be loads of people for whom, I don't know, Grave and Deep on normal is not even challenging, but veteran it really, really is. And there's like a question mark over whether they clear or not. So yeah, an intermediate mode in a dungeon like that would be cool for a lot of people. And I would love going back to, I don't know, Banished Cells 2 and getting my ass kicked by Release again. I remember the days when it used to happen. That's my favourite suggestion by far. Sadly, I don't see ZOS doing it. 2, maybe 3 out of 5. I guess I've been a pessimist for the rest of the video, so yeah, I'll be the optimist and say 3. Was that the last one?
Yep, yeah, that's it.
Nice. Those, yeah, you're right. Those are intriguing to think about. What about you? Which of these do you think is the most likely? And which one would be your favourite?
I think the most likely, sadly, is, getting romantic and having some nocturnal fun with your companions. I mean, who's asking for that? Like, but yeah, I have a feeling that that's the one. For me, I would love the new reward system or the other difficulties. Because I want to go back into the old dungeons and yeah, as you said, just enjoy them again. So you don't just breathe on the enemy and it's down. But also for a teaching guild, from that kind of perspective, having a little step up before you just get your ass absolutely handed to you when you try and do Dreadcell hard modes, with a group that actually, the vet was fine, but hard modes, just not even, couldn't possibly get them. So that would be great. Anything that will actually help people get better, surely that's the accessibility they've been banging on about for the whole year, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that, I would love to see that. Like I said, it will probably be none of these things, but hey, it's fun to speculate, right? If you've got some theories or ideas you want to share with us, put them in the comment section. And remember to check out ninjapulse.com for Khan's amazing DPS guides. And keep an eye out for a Maxorg video coming very, very soon. Also, my ESO 2022 review will also come out in the next couple of weeks, so subscribe and stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely December.